Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating mystery: how a supposedly unphishable passkey was totally bypassed without ever actually stealing a credential. I mean, you've been told for years that hardware-backed passkeys and Windows Hello for Business are basically the ultimate defense against identity theft, right? But what happens when the very operating system generating your secure login leaves a perfect functional copy of your digital key just lying there on your hard drive?
It kind of sounds like a riddle, right? How exactly do you bypass an unphishable credential? Well, today we are unpacking the paradox behind CVE 2026-34348. This was a massive vulnerability presented by security researcher Michael Grafnetter at Black Hat 2026. Basically, this flaw allowed hardware-backed sign-ins to Microsoft Entra ID to be silently copied and replayed. No phishing links were clicked, no password prompts were intercepted, and yet an attacker could just walk right through the front door.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll quickly run through Part 1, the passkey bypass exploit, Part 2, how the attack worked, Part 3, a two-part system failure, Part 4, verifying your system exposure, and finally Part 5, the Microsoft security fix. Let's jump right in.
Part 1. The passkey bypass exploit. Let's understand the fundamental flaw.
Before we set off any alarms here, I really want to emphasize an absolutely crucial point. No private key was ever logged, transmitted, or exposed. Your physical security keys, your UB keys, your TPM chips, they did their job perfectly. They never surrendered the private key itself. So to be clear, this is not a failure of passkey technology as a concept.
Instead, the vulnerability stemmed entirely from what Windows decided to write into a diagnostic event log, combined with a crucial missing check on Azure Data's side. The issue wasn't the lock, and it certainly wasn't the key. The issue was that a temporary authorized pass got printed out and carelessly filed away right in the Microsoft Windows Web Authentic and Operational log, where anyone with the right local permissions could just read it.
Moving to Part 2, how the attack worked and exploiting those diagnostic logs. Think of it like a VIP club. In Step 1, you show your private, mathematically proven stamp at the door. The bouncer checks it and lets you in. But in Step 2, Windows decides to leave a perfect, high-resolution photocopy of that stamp ticket right in the trash bin next to the door. In Step 3, an attacker casually walks by, picks that photocopy out of the trash, and in Step 4, they just hand it right back to the bouncer, and the bouncer says, "Sure, come on in." Because for a window of several minutes, EntraID would accept that replayed signature as completely legitimate. Now, what makes this exploit so devastating is the blast radius. It literally doesn't care about privilege levels. If an attacker manages to read a local event log right after a global administrator signs in, boom, they become that admin. It's a direct one-to-one escalation if they happen to catch the right log entry at the exact right time.
Part 3. A two-part system failure. Let's look at what happens when client and server gaps align. This is a classic Swiss cheese model of security failure. On one side, you have the Windows client overlogging sensitive data, literally putting the full functional signature into a diagnostic log just to say, hey, a sign-in happened. And on the flip side, the EntraID server completely failed to verify the authenticator's signature counter. You know, WebAuthn actually has a built-in defense for this, a counter that ticks up every single time the key is used. If EntraID had just been checking that counter, it would have instantly rejected the reused duplicate assertion, but that check was missing.
And this table perfectly illustrates exactly where the leak occurred. Looking at the WebAuthn operational log during a normal passkey sign-in, event IDs 2000 and 2001 were the main culprits. They were quietly, successfully recording the full exploitable cryptographic signature right into the log. If you see those events heavily populated with data prior to patching, well, that was the vulnerability just sitting there in plain text.
Part 4. Verifying your system exposure. Let's talk about auditing the blast radius.
The real attack surface here isn't the open internet. It's anyone who can read local event logs on your machines without tripping an EDR alert. Reading an event log is a perfectly normal administrative action, which is exactly what makes this so quiet and deadly. You really need to audit local groups like event log readers, remote desktop users, and administrators. Basically, anyone in these groups on a shared machine could theoretically pull off this replay attack. Just a quick practical tip for the IT admins tuning in: when you're scripting out your audits to check these groups using PowerShell, you might actually hit a snag. If PowerShell throws an error due to unresolvable domain SIDs, meaning it can't resolve a nested domain group, Just fall back to the legacy command line net local group administrators. It handles that specific edge case correctly and ensures your audit doesn't miss anyone.
And please, remember this golden rule. Never, ever query the log for the actual event message content. Don't pull it up just to take a look, and certainly never paste that content into a help desk ticket, a Teams chat, or your internal documentation. Even on a patched device, you have to treat this log exactly like credential material. By looking at the message body, you could accidentally expose the exact signature you're trying to protect.
Finally, Part 5, the Microsoft Security Fix, closing the loop.
6 bytes. That is the magic number here. The July 2026 Windows Update targets the root cause on the client side by truncating the logged cryptographic signature down to a mere 6 bytes. This is brilliant because it keeps the log completely useful for basic IT diagnostics, like you can still see that an event happened, but it makes the data completely useless for an attacker who might be trying to replay it to Entra ID.
So we end up with a really comprehensive dual-patch defense. Microsoft automatically fixed the Entra ID server backend to finally check those signature counters, which means server-side replays are now rejected across the board. But you absolutely cannot ignore the client side. Prioritizing the Windows patch via your management tools like Intune or WSUS is essential for true defense in depth. You've got to make sure your endpoints aren't bleeding data, period.
While Pass-the-Passkey is officially fixed, it does leave us with a pretty compelling thought to end on today. If a supposedly unphishable, state-of-the-art authentication system was completely undermined simply because an operating system was being a little too helpful with its diagnostic logging, what other routine diagnostic logs might be silently recording perfectly valid entry tickets across our infrastructure right now? It's a great reminder that in the world of security, oversharing, even to your own event viewer, can easily become your biggest blind spot. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep your logs clean and your patches current.